Rupert Lowe and Charlie Downs being accused of anti-Semitism, right? They are being accused of anti-Semitism. Are they anti-Semites? That's the question. Are they really anti-Semites, right? So what have the trades been saying? So it's mainly the Telegraph and the Daily Mail, both right-wing publications, but more centre-right, right? So they are sort of siding more with the reform at the moment. And they are calling Restore kind of like a neo-Nazi party, an ethno-nationalist party. What you've got to really understand is that the mainstream media, obviously we have our left-wing and right-wing dynamic here in the UK, but the right wing doesn't go as far as some of the people, right? And I've argued this on the show before. I think it's a minority of people, right? But they don't go as far to the right as some of those people, like calling for every single non-white person to be deported from the United Kingdom, like every single Muslim to be deported from the United Kingdom. That to them is seen as like blasphemy. That's like completely antithetical to British values, which of course it is, right? Because it's a liberal democracy, it's not an authoritarian fascist state. So when they see those types of statements, they're like, this is crazy. But it's not really necessarily about Muslims here. We've looked at Muslims before on the show, as in regards to what they say about Muslims. It's about Jews now. So, is it true? What are the statements that Rupert Lowe and Charlie Downs have made? Now, Charlie Downs, the latter, hasn't really said that much. He described Nigel Farage, as being bought by Jews, right? Quote, bought by Jews. So he's saying he's bought by the Jews. And Charlie Downs, if you don't know, is the spokesperson of Restore Britain, right? So he's the spokesperson of Restore Britain. And he's also the co-founder, along with Rupert Lowe. So he co-founded Restore Britain. And he's actually a young guy. He's very young. I think he's only 25, right? Gen Z guy. And he is the spokesperson. And he's actually said, he said crazy things, but he's also described what's going on in Gaza as a genocide, right? He said it's a genocide. So obviously we agree with him there. And I think it's because he's a young guy, he can get away with saying stuff like that. But Rupert Lowe, on the other hand, we've seen from him that he is kind of like sort of an old traditional Tory type, and they tend to be pro-Israel. So is Rupert Lowe pro-Israel? Well, some of the statements that the trades are coming with, they're saying that Rupert Lowe has made many anti-Israel, anti-Jewish even statements, like he made a joke in Parliament where he said that he saw a camera and it was small, so he made a joke that it's a Jewish camera because, you know, Jews are tight, so they buy the smallest camera. He said that wasn't really politically correct to say. He said that in Parliament. He was pushed back. He was asked about that, and he said that, I don't remember making the joke, but maybe, right? We have him on tape saying it. But that's not the worst of it. He's described the grooming gang scandal, which we've debunked on the show, just complete rubbish. But he described that as being the UK's Holocaust. Oh my goodness, this guy is genuinely crazy. But he described it as the UK's Holocaust, where 6 million Jews, right? 6 million Jews are killed in the Holocaust. He's described that as 3,073 girls being victims of child sexual exploitation in Rotherham, in Telford, and in Oxford. You can't make this stuff up. You really can't. But besides that, obviously the Jewish community will take offence to that because they're not even in the slightest. What else has he said? What else has he said? He's trying to think now. What else did they? Oh yes, the kosher slaughter. So the kosher slaughter, the Jews are taking offence to this. They're saying that, you know, why do you want to ban kosher slaughter? We as Jews live in this country. We should be able to slaughter our meat however we like. Why do you have a problem with that? And that's a good question, right? Initially, Rupert Lowe was running on banning halal slaughter, and then he changed his position and he said, I'm going to ban halal slaughter, we're also going to ban kosher slaughter, right? We're going to do both. We're going to ban both of them. Now, the reason why he said that was because he was getting a lot of pushback from the Muslim community, but also his own supporters were saying, well, you know, why don't you also ban kosher slaughter? If you're going to ban halal slaughter, ban kosher slaughter, right? And he did concede that. And he started rebranding and saying, we're going to ban kosher slaughter as well, right? He would say it in like replies. At first, he would say, we're going to ban kosher slaughter, so that nobody really saw that. But then he was kind of forced into the position where it was made like a party policy, right? Part of the platform. Now, I don't want to digress too much, but if you actually look at this, you know, they talk about stunning, right? Stunning the animal. In Judaism, stunning the animal is not permissible, right? In kosher slaughter, you can't stun the animal. The animal must be alive, no stunning whatsoever. It can't be drowsy, and that's where you would cut the throat of the animal, right? So that is the kosher way of slaughtering an animal. In Islam, that's not the case, right? An animal can be stunned so long as the animal is still alive, right? It can be slightly unconscious, but as long as the animal is still alive, and then you cut the throat of the animal, that's fine, which is how the Brits and the English slaughter that meat anyway, right? If you actually look at the figures, 88% of halal meat here in the UK is stunned before the slaughter. So when they talk about banning halal meat, right, why did they start with halal meat where we stun anyway? The Jews are the ones that don't stun. So why didn't he, if your problem is stunning, no problem. Your problem is stunning for the animal, for the welfare of the animal, no problem. So why didn't you start with kosher meat? I've just told you we're allowed to stun in Islam. We're allowed to stun, no problem. I've just told you 88% of the halal meat in this country is stunned before slaughter. The Jews don't do that. That's forbidden in Judaism. You cannot stun the animal. Perfectly permissible in Islam. So why is it, and this is why I don't think Lowe is an anti-Semite, I actually think he's a rabid Zionist. But why is it, my friend, that you are talking about halal slaughter before you even talk about the kosher slaughter? You're forced into the position to ban kosher slaughter. You don't really want to, but you have to do it to look consistent. So why is it that you didn't start with kosher slaughter first? I've just told you 88% of our meat is slaughtered the same way you slaughter your meat. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is very clear. 88% of our meat is stunned. That's not allowed in Judaism. So I hope I've made the point very clear. When they debate halal slaughter, bring this to them. Because this is the problem. They probably don't even know how meat is slaughtered. These are the types of the intelligence we're talking about with these individuals, these far-right individuals, including the party leader. They talk about, oh, you can't, you must stun your meat because it's kinder to the animal, and it suppresses, reduces the harm to the animal. It doesn't feel the pain as much. Okay, no problem. We stun anyway. We don't have a problem with stunning. So what are you talking about? You're talking baloney. I'm sorry, it's just bogus what you're saying, right? So we need to make that point, and you can make that point whenever you are questioned on halal slaughter. But a little bit of a digress, because we're talking about anti-Semitism. So do I think Rupert Lowe is an anti-Semite? No, I do not think Rupert Lowe is an anti-Semite whatsoever. I don't think he's an anti-Semite, because if you actually look at the statement he has made on this issue, sometime this week he made the statement, and he said that, for all I care, Israel should wipe Hamas from the face of the planet, wipe them, get rid of them, remove them, and if anything, we remove the Islamists from this country to protect the Jews of the UK. Oh my goodness. This is the hypocrisy we're talking about. You want to ban halal slaughter, but you don't want to ban kosher slaughter at first. You want to deport Muslims from this country, but you don't want to deport Jews. The Jews can stay, no problem, but we'll deport the Muslims. Do you not see the hypocrisy? You want to ban Sharia councils, not courts, councils, family matter councils, but you want to keep the Beth-Din courts, the Jewish courts, which again are family. I'm not going to say that the Jewish courts are, actually running a parallel legal system. They're not, right? I'm being consistent. They are both family matter courts, right? Or councils is a better word to describe them. So Rupert Lowe is a hypocritical scumbag with all respect. Charlie Downs is a little bit better. He's a bit younger. And it doesn't seem as malign with how he describes these issues. He does have some crazy takes as well. But I feel like you sit down with him and you can really flesh out these arguments. Rupert Lowe doesn't really believe in anything. He's just like I said, a scumbag. He's a scumbag. Sorry to say, but he's a scumbag, right? So is he an anti-Semite? No, I think he's actually a Zionist. If I was to sit him down right now, I could get him to say he was a Zionist, right? He believes in Israel. He probably loves Israel. He probably will take a trip to Israel if he were made prime minister, which would never happen. So he's a Zionist. He's not an anti-Semite, right? He is not an anti-Semite in the slightest, right? In the slightest. But that doesn't mean he isn't still wrong. Is he an Islamophobic bigot? Is he a Muslim bigot? Anti-Islam bigot? Yes, he is. He hates Muslims. He doesn't care about Jews, right? He doesn't care about Jews. And if anything, he's afraid to criticize Jews. He's afraid to condemn the Beth-Din courts and the kosher slaughter. You have to push him to condemn the kosher slaughter and ban the kosher slaughter. He's a hypocrite, a complete and utter hypocrite. And we will continue to debunk this scumbag.